And it's Friday, so it's Brunch with Bernie. It's time for our national town hall meeting with the guy I think of as America's senator, Senator Bernie Sanders. Sanders.senate.gov, his website. Of course, he represents the great state of Vermont, where Louise and I lived for about a decade, and we were pleased to have him then as our member of the House of Representatives. Bernie, welcome.
Great to be with you, Tom.
Always great to have you with us. There's a lot going on, from healthcare to filibuster to student loans. Wow.
There is a lot. It's a busy week, and let me just rattle off some of what's going on. There will be likely, one never knows, but likely a vote on Tuesday regarding a change of Senate rules in an effort to end Republican obstructionism with regard to votes on presidential appointments. Right now, you have situations where Richard Cordray, who is the president's nominee to be heading the Consumer Finance Commission, which is it provides important protection to consumers who are getting ripped off by banks. His nomination has been held up forever. We have the issue of the entire National Labor Relations Board, which may soon not have a majority and not be able to function to protect workers whose rights on the job are being violated. We have Tom Perez, Obama's nominee to be Secretary of Labor, being held up forever. Not to mention Gina McCarthy, who has been nominated to be head of the EPA. The issue here is that historically, with few exceptions, the assumption was that the president who won the election has a right to appoint his team to bring cabinet people on board as quickly as possible to do their job. What Republicans have said, going way back to when Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader in the Senate, made the famous statement that his Republicans' main goal is to make sure that Obama is not a two-term president. They lost that particular effort, but they have persisted in trying to be as obstructionist as possible. Historically, people have had votes. Presidents have made nominations, and those nominees got a vote, and that was that. But Republicans now, for a variety of reasons, not because they think there are questions of moral turpitude or anything else, but simply because, among other things, they don't like the EPA. They don't want the Environmental Protection Agency to enforce the law against large companies who pollute. Well, that's one reason to stall off Gina McCarthy's nomination. You don't like the National Labor Relations Board because it gives workers protection as they try to form unions or work to prevent violations of labor law on the job. Well, let's not have a National Labor Relations Board. We don't like consumer protection. Let's not have a guy who's head of that agency. So what Reid, the majority leader, has finally said is enough is enough. The president is entitled to his nominees. We are going to change the rules so that if Republicans want to filibuster, it will only require 51 votes to overcome that filibuster rather than 60. Now, Tom, I was, as you may recall, a number of months ago, Democrats argued about filibuster, and a lot of us in the Senate who believed we should move to what is called a talking filibuster. Mm-hmm. And that means give the opposition all the time they need to make their case, but at the end of the day, we needed 51 votes. Reid and the leadership rejected that idea. They came up with a kind of a weak approach that expedited the process, but went nowhere near as far as it should. I was the only person in the caucus, as an independent Democratic caucus, to vote against it, and I think the Democrats are now rethinking their approach. So that should come up for a vote, I think, on Tuesday. My own view remains that so long as the Republicans have, in a sense, broken the long tradition, the long, quote-unquote, gentleman's agreement, which has always stated that filibusters should be done sparingly, that you don't require 60 votes unless it is rather something extraordinary, that in general pieces of legislation should be voted upon with 51 votes winning, majority winning. And since the Republicans have essentially discarded that unwritten rule that has existed for so long, I think it's time for the Democrats to put in writing language which says, you know what, majority rules. You can have as much time as you want to argue your case, but at the end of the day, this country faces so many serious problems that we need the Senate to start functioning and pass legislation which protects working people, that we've got to end this obstructionism. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, and that's what will happen on Tuesday. The other issue that got a lot of attention this week is the issue of student loans. We have a real crisis in this country with lower income and middle class families having a difficult time affording to send their kids to college. Of course, the college is soaring. We now have a situation where student debt is actually even higher in this country at $1.1 trillion than credit card debt. And kids, you have hundreds of thousands of young people who are quite able to handle a college workload, but are choosing not to go to college because they don't want to come out of school $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 in debt. And that is a real tragedy, not only for those young people, their families, but for the country as well. We lose all of that intellectual capital because these kids can no longer afford to go to college because the costs are too high. Early in the week, we voted to maintain what's called the Stafford subsidized loan, which goes out to the lowest income families at 3.4%. We won that vote with 51%, but Republicans filibustered. We needed 60 votes, didn't carry. There's another effort on the way which I have serious concerns about because it's tied to a 10-year interest rates for students will be and their families will be tied to a 10-year Treasury note, which means that as interest rates go up, as most economists expect they will, the interest rates on student loans will also go up. There will be a cap on those loans under that legislation at some 8.2%. But some of the grad student loans may go higher, and the parent loan program may go higher, up to 9.7%. So bottom line here, I think that we should, as a nation, make affordable college a priority. I think we should not allow interest rates to go to a level which is unsustainable for many working class families. So I'm not sympathetic to this interest rates tied to a 10-year Treasury note, which means that they will go up and up and up, and most likely. Mm-hmm. So those are a couple of the issues that are out there. A third issue has to do with the chairman and ranking member of the Senate Finance Committee, Max Baucus, is the chairman of that committee, asking for proposals regarding tax policy in the United States. My fear there is that the ranking member, Orrin Hatch, and the chairman, Max Baucus, are not particularly strong on these issues in terms of standing up to corporate America. So we have a situation now where 1 out of 4 major corporations is paying nothing in taxes. Corporate tax rates at 12% are much lower than they have been in recent years, and I do not want to see these guys give more tax breaks to corporations that today are enjoying record-breaking profits. So that's a whole other area of discussion.
And an important one. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Bernie taking your calls. And be sure to check out his website over at sanders.senate.gov.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
On Bernie's website, you can both sign up for his newsletter, The Bernie Buzz, plus you can see every day, every few hours, they update the information on there. It's a great news source. Check it out. And welcome back, Bernie.
Yep.
May I take the first question myself, please?
Why not? Are you listening to the show? Are you a regular listener?
I am, and it's been a long time.
If you're a regular listener, we'll take that first.
Okay, thanks. And I think it's been a long time since I've asked my own question, or asked the question. We historically in the United States, the social contract that we've had with ourselves essentially is that we will provide education for free to the point where a person is capable of entering the job market and making a living. Back 50, 80 years ago, 100 years ago, that was maybe 8th or ninth grade in a lot of states. Ultimately, it became 12th grade, high school. We would give you a free high school education. I think it could be safely argued now that to be able to enter the job, and certainly during my dad's generation, you could enter the job market with a high school degree and do just fine. But I think it could be argued now that really you need to have at least 2 years of college and arguably 4 to be able to succeed in the middle class in the job market. Shouldn't we alter that social contract about how much education we'll provide for free, we at the society, and instead of talking about student loans, be talking about providing a free college education to everybody, or a free college or trade school, whatever it takes to get into the job market.
I agree with what you said. And this is not a really, Tom, as you know, a very radical concept. As you and I have discussed, and I know you spent time in Denmark, we had the Danish ambassador doing some town meetings with me a couple of months ago. And if you go to college in Denmark, not only do you not have to pay anything out of your pocket, I believe you get a stipend. And Denmark is not unique. There are other Scandinavian countries, some European countries which do the same. So in terms of how we treat college education in this country, we're behind every other major country on earth to our detriment. I mean, what Denmark and other countries realize is that they are going to be competitive in the global economy. They need a very well-educated workforce. And they are willing to put money into their young people to get the best education they can, which benefits not only the individual young people, it benefits the country as a whole. I believe that. And I agree with you. Our goal should be that every young person or not young person in this country, people need to be retrained, need new educational experience, that every person in this country who has the ability should be able to get the education they need regardless of their income. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you. Right now, we are doing worse, as I said, than any other major country. Kids are graduating college right now, 4-year experience, at some $27,000 in debt on average, which means the some are graduating $30,000, $40,000. Talk to people who've gone to graduate school, to medical school, to dental school. You could be talking up to $200,000 in debt. That is pretty crazy. Yeah. So the goal should be to say, okay, how do we have the best educated population in the world so that we can be leaders in a very competitive economy so that our people can run our democracy in the best way possible? We are certainly not doing that. So if your point is, should we move away from loans, you're right. But right now the argument is whether or not we're going to reach the stage where loans are going to be 8, 9, 10%.
Right.
Rather than 3.4%.
We're still a long way from that.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Bernie. We'll be back with your calls for Senator Bernie Sanders. Right, and there's a pileup on the board. My apologies for jumping the line here. We'll be back with your calls for Bernie right after this. Welcome back. 20 minutes past the hour. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls in our National Town Hall meeting. Jason in Washington, D.C., listening on Sirius Satellite Radio. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hey, I'm a big one in terms of corporate governance, and what I've been disturbed about is the Obama administration, the Justice Department's been in charge for a very long period of time, and I've been seeing companies like HSBC that has been charged with laundering drug money and dealing with rogue nations get fines, but nobody goes to jail. Glaxo, $3 billion fine, nobody goes to jail. Wells Fargo Wachovia, laundering money again, fines, nobody goes to jail. But you steal an apple from a corner, and you're going to get ramrodded. So somehow these corporations have this insulation. What are we going to do? And it's not about, well, we need to vote. Obama's in power. He's in charge of the Justice Department. Why is there not people going to jail?
Well, Jason, thank you for giving my speech that I have given on a couple of occasions on the floor of the Senate. Let me be very frank with you. The Attorney General, Eric Holder, a couple of months ago, he kind of backpedaled from it a little bit. But this is what he said. He was up before some committee in the Senate, and somebody asked him a question. He said, well, in so many words, I'm not quoting him exactly, obviously. He said, look, if we prosecute these large, huge financial institutions, it will bring instability to these banks, which could have national economic implications and even international, global economic implications. In other words, to rephrase what Holder said, these guys are not only too big to fail, they are too big to jail. So, Jason, let me give you the blunt answer. The reason these guys are not prosecuted or jailed is they are too powerful. And let me tell you what I expect you already know. There is, at the very least, a double standard of justice in this country. If you're a working person, if you're a kid, if you break the law and you don't have a lot of money, you can go to jail. But if you are a major player in a huge financial institution, you don't go to jail. That's where we are in America. And frankly, it doesn't matter whether it's a Republican running the White House or a Democrat running the White House. Wall Street, there's often a lot of discussion about how Congress should regulate Wall Street, Dodd-Frank, etc. The reality, as I've mentioned on this show a million times, Wall Street regulates the Congress. The Congress does not regulate Wall Street. What's the answer to that? There is no answer for tomorrow. The answer is that you need a strong, progressive, grassroots movement, which, among many other things in terms of Wall Street, breaks up these handful of huge financial institutions, which today are bigger than they were before they were, quote-unquote, too big to fail, where you have 6 financial institutions today that have assets equivalent to 2/3 of the gross domestic product of the United States of America, over $9 trillion controlled by 6 financial institutions. So if anyone thinks that the United States Congress regulates these guys, you got it backwards. They have the ability politically, through campaign contributions, through lobbyists, through all of their influence, to have a huge impact on what Congress does and does not do. Jason, that is the honest answer to your question.
Tony in Midlothian, Virginia. You're on the air, Senator Sanders.
Hello, how you doing, Senator?
Good.
I was just wondering, my wife works for the Department of the Army, and she's getting furloughed every Friday, so she's losing 20% of her paycheck, which is a nice little chunk. So I was just wondering, when are you guys going to start talking again about the sequester?
Thank you, Tony. And tell your wife we appreciate her service. And let me answer your question. I agree with the sentiment of your question, except for one phrase. It's you guys. And very often, Tom, what happens is people get so disgusted with what goes on in Washington as they kind of lump everybody together, which really benefits right-wing Republicans. So here's the story. Sequestration, which is a 2% cut across the board, and in the military they are dealing with that cut by putting on furlough some of their people. Other places, in terms of the Older Americans Act, for example, 2% cut means that frail, hungry, elderly people may not be getting a Meals on Wheels. It means that if you are a working class person and your kid is in Head Start, you may not be able to have your kid in Head Start. It means that if you need affordable housing, you may not be able to get affordable housing. That's what sequestration is about. Now, sequestration came about because Congress could not reach an agreement on a budget. That's basically what it's about. I voted for, as a member of the Budget Committee, a strong budget which would have prevented sequestration. And it does that by saying, yeah, we're going to deal with deficit reduction, but you're going to deal with that not just by cutting Medicare and Medicaid and every other program, nutrition programs, housing programs, but by asking large corporations, 1 out of 4 of which pay nothing in taxes today, to start paying something in taxes. And that's where the rubber hit the road. Our Republican friends who control the House say, no. The only way we want to do deficit reduction, the only way we will do it is by cutting. We don't want billionaires in this country to pay a nickel more in taxes. We don't want major corporations, General Electric, Bank of America, many others, making billions of profits who in any given year might pay zero in federal income taxes. They don't want to ask those guys to pay. That's where we are at. That's why sequestration took place. So we are working hard trying to get a budget. And I will tell you that the budget passed the Senate a number of months ago. I think it was a 50 to 49 vote. And every day, the chair of the Budget Committee, Patty Murray of Washington, is trying to get the budget to go into conference committee. Republicans are objecting to that. So that's kind of where we are right now. And I'm sorry to say that, Tony, but that's the reality of where we are.
So right now it's the Republicans in the House of Representatives, basically, that are blocking it.
Republicans in the Senate and in the House.
And in the Senate. Oh, my. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour, our national town hall meeting where you can ask questions of a United States Senator. Be sure to check out Bernie's website, sanders.senate.gov. We'll be back in just a minute with more of your questions for Bernie.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
And don't forget, we have a Thom Hartmann app over at the App Store. You get Sue's Daily List, you get our newsletter, you get our blog, you get all kinds of cool stuff. It's free. Welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program, the True People's Media. It is our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders on the line with us, taking your questions. And Jelena in Hazel Park, Michigan, watching Free Speech TV on the Dish TV satellite network. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes. I have a question about the coming TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and what if the people, if anything, can do anything about this, or at least be educated about it to hold our leaders accountable.
Thank you, Jelena, for that important question. Since the Reagan era, there have been a number of free trade agreements that have been passed by Congress. Perhaps the best known is NAFTA, and you have CAFTA, the Central American Free Trade Agreement. You have the Permanent Normal Trade Relations with China, a huge trade agreement. There are a number of other trade agreements, including the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which will include Vietnam and a number of other Asian countries. I think the American people understand that by and large, the so-called free trade agreements pushed by corporate America have worked to benefit large multinational corporations, but have been disastrous for working families. When you look at the economy right now, Galena, and you see a middle class in rapid decline, a median family income some $5,000 a year below where it was back in 1999, real unemployment close to 14%, young people unable to find any type of work. When you look at that, one of the reasons for the decline of the middle class has been the collapse of manufacturing in the United States. In the last 10 years, we have lost close to 60,000 factories, not all of them having to do with trade or companies moving to China or Mexico or elsewhere. Some of that dealing with automation and companies just go out of business. But a lot of it having to do with the fact that corporations in this country prefer to hire people abroad at low wages than hire Americans at a living wage. That's just the simple reality. They don't want to obey environmental laws. They don't want to deal with unions. They don't want to provide health care. So I think any objective analysis of our past trade policies, which force American workers to compete against people in Vietnam, for example, I suspect there are people working there making $25, $50 a week. And I think that's wrong. So what we need to do is to end the so-called unfettered free trade programs and establish trade programs which are designed to protect working families, not just multinational corporations. So I say that to you, Galena, as somebody who has never voted for any of these trade agreements, and I think those votes were from a historical perspective, absolutely correct. And I have similar misgivings about the TPP.
Harry in Seattle, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Senator, in light of the lies that the Republicans told about the Affordable Care Act, what lies do you predict they will tell in opposition to Senator Warren's bill to restore the the rule of law to the banking industry?
The Glass-Steagall repeat.
Yeah. Well, some of us, for a number of years, let me retreat a little bit here and give you my sense of what goes on. First of all, I do not believe that we're going to ever be able to restore the middle class in this country, ever create the kind of vibrant economy we need unless we deal with Wall Street. Wall Street is just so powerful. They are so large. They are involved in such reckless and speculative activity that they are an absolute detriment to our economy. As I mentioned earlier, all of these banks that were bailed out in 2008, 2009, because they were too big to fail, are actually larger today, and they continue along their speculative efforts. The function of Wall Street is not to provide capital to the productive economy, i.e. to businesses, large and small, who actually produce products or provide services. Wall Street, to a significant degree, has become a gambling institution through very complicated financial mechanisms and it is able to make huge sums of money for itself. So obviously I support the effort to restore Glass-Steagall, but I think we've got to go even further than that. Now you say, what lies will they say? Well, I think the lies will be that banks, financial institutions, J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, etc., cannot be competitive in the global economy unless they continue to be very, very large and are able to provide all of the services they do. There are a number of studies which suggest that the opposite is actually true, that their huge size makes them in many ways inefficient. But the bottom line here is that economically, when you have 6 financial institutions having assets equivalent to 2/3 of the GDP of America, that gives us so much economic power, so much political power, that if that continues to stand, I worry very much about the future economic life of this country. So, kind of that's what they will tell us, is that being big, being huge is necessary in the global economy. Tell us about all the wonderful things that they do. I don't suspect the American people will believe much of that.
Greg in Youngwood, Pennsylvania. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, sir. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Okay. I think it's really sad because we have a U.S. Senator, and the best we can do is, they're too big to jail, so that's okay, and we're going to accept that. I mean, it's pathetic, come to think of it, because we need to cut term limits for one thing, because people who are senators and congressmen won't do anything because it's tied to their job. And we can't accept this in America because they tell us anything and we accept it. And as a U.S. Senator,
Greg, do you have a question?
Proactive. Yeah, I do. I do have a question, sir. Why are U.S. senators so weak and they do accept this as
good question.
Jail?
Good question, Greg. And the answer is, I don't agree with you, by the way, about term limits making the situation better. What you need is campaign finance reform. Greg, the answer is really not complicated. Just imagine if you were to run for the United States Senate from Pennsylvania, you'd probably have to raise $25, $30, $40 million. Where do you think you're going to get most of your money from? Where do you think your money is going to come from for you to win, for you to put those 30-second ads up on television that candidates often do? The reality is that especially since Citizens United, which was that disastrous Supreme Court decision, candidates have to raise huge sums of money. And the way they get their money is from wealthy individuals and large corporations. That's the reality. Unless you deal with that reality of a Congress and governors, etc., dependent upon big money, you're not going to have state legislatures or the U.S. House of Representatives or the U.S. Senate standing up and fighting for ordinary people. That is the reality. So you need campaign finance reform. In my view, you need public funding of elections. But, Greg, don't get distracted by things like term limits. So if you had term limits, who do you think would be running the Senate? The bureaucracy and the lobbyists would have even more power. The essential issue is, do we elect people who are going to represent working families, or do you elect people who are going to represent corporate America? And so long as candidates are dependent upon big money to get elected, that's who they're going to represent.
Steve, in Miami Beach, Florida, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, Senator. I have a lot of respect for you. I want to preface my comments with that. But beyond that, I wonder, at what point do you feel enough frustration that you'll leave the Senate and actually participate in a progressive grassroots movement that may actually get some of these things pushed forward? And I think Tom has said before that progressive movements are not won from within the system. They're actually led from without the system.
Well, Steve, thank you for the question. I am very proud to be, Vermont's senator. It's a position I never believed that somebody with my views would have. And I'm going to do my best to represent Vermont and working people around the country. Your point about the need for a strong national progressive movement is absolutely correct. And we're going to need, we're going to need, it's not just a leader that we need, Steve. We need people all over this country prepared to get their hands dirty, running for the school board, running for the city council, running for the legislature, running for governor, getting the word out to other people in the middle class and the working class that we better be involved in politics. I just saw a piece today that Charles Koch of the Koch brothers is now busy spending hundreds of thousands of dollars already on TV and media ads. The billionaires are at war with working families, and working families have got to fight back. So it's not a question of me, Steve, being a leader of that movement. It's a question of thousands of people all over this country coming together and understanding their common interests. Understanding that if you are a federal worker or a state employee, or you work in the private sector, or if your mom has Social Security, your dad has Medicare, we're all in this together. We better stand together.
Senator Bernie Sanders with us in our Brunch with Bernie hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be back with more of your calls for Bernie in just a moment. Be sure to check out Bernie's website, Sanders, sanders.senate.gov.gov. You'll find a treasure trove of great information.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Plus, you can sign up for Bernie's newsletter, The Bernie Buzz. It'll keep you up to date on what's going on in the Senate, politics in general, and around the country. Welcome back. Paul, watching Free Speech TV on the Dish Satellite TV network in South Lyon, Michigan. Paul, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hey, Senator. Hey. Stay right where you're at, first of all. I mean, where could anyone have such power to make positive change than as a senator? My question is, after all the lies and exaggerations that have been put out by so-called libertarians Ed Snowden and Glenn Greenwald, designed to make it look like government spying has gotten worse under President Obama, isn't it true that there were no restrictions at all under Bush under government spying? And that, since Obama, there's been a lot of restrictions like the FISA courts, congressional oversight, and the Justice Department, which now we can trust. When Bush was president, all we had was the Injustice Department. So would you compare the NSA program between President Bush and President Obama? Thanks.
Thanks for the question, Paul. I'm sorry I have to disagree with you. The FISA court has been around for a while. It was certainly there under Bush. The USA Patriots Act, which I consistently voted against, was started under Bush and pushed by Bush. But the truth is that many of those programs have been expanded under Barack Obama. What the USA Patriot Act is about, and Section 215 of that act specifically, is it gives law enforcement and intelligence agencies the capability of gathering information about a person. And the question that we have to ask, what are the criteria that the government should be given to go after people? Is it enough for a law enforcement guy to walk in and say, hey, Judge, I think somebody is a terrorist? Oh, okay, then you can tap his phone, no problem. Of course not. There has to be a criteria. And what we believe is that, roughly speaking, the legal bar should be something like probable cause. Judge, I have reason to believe because of A, B, C, and D that this individual is associating with terrorists, maybe involved in terrorist activities, and I want to investigate that person. Then the judge says, okay, do it. The concern that we have right now, and this has expanded under Obama, is that intelligence agencies, the NSA in particular, as we recently learned, now is basically filing every phone call made in the United States of America, not listening in. They're not tapping people's phones, but they are filing it. So they know that you made a call at 2:43 p.m. to another telephone number, and obviously we know who that call is to. Do we as a nation feel comfortable that every bloody telephone call made in America is on file in the United States government? Frankly, I don't. And it's not only telephone calls. It's getting into the websites that we visit. So, Paul, I wish that I could tell you that Barack Obama, who I have supported, who is a constitutional lawyer, has been particularly good on this issue. I do wish that I could tell you that. I can't.
Okay. Bernie, we just have 5 seconds here to wrap it up. So thank you.
Well, if we have 5 seconds, I guess we just wrapped it up, huh?
we just did. Thank you. Okay, we'll be right back with more of your calls for Senator Sanders right after this. Stick around. It's 10 minutes before the hour. 10 minutes before the hour. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls. Jim in Albuquerque, New Mexico, listening on KABQ. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good afternoon, and it's an honor for me to speak to both of you.
Thank you.
My question is what are the benefits if the Koch brothers, GE, all of the corporations eventually end up getting what they want out of the workers, out of the United States, out of the economy? Where is the benefit for them in the long run? I don't understand.
Okay. Jim, thanks for that question. Tom, one of the things that's frustrating is, as a senator, I see a million issues. And the American people see a million issues. There's so many things that are happening, and so many of them are important. And every issue is important to somebody out there. But there are some profound issues, some issues that are just much, much more important than anything else. And I think Jim began to touch on that issue. And that is that what is going on right now in America is you have folks like the Koch brothers and others, people of the billionaire class, who are literally at war with working families. I just saw something up on a website which implied that one of the Koch brothers, at least, believes that we should do away with the minimum wage, that the existence of the minimum wage is an impediment to prosperity in America. And now you have, by the way, in Washington, I can tell you that the debate is not whether we raise the minimum wage. I believe in substantially increasing the minimum wage. Vermont has one of the highest minimum wages in the country. The question among our Republican friends is whether or not the minimum wage should exist at all. And apparently at least one of the Koch brothers, and I can tell you many United States senators, now believe that we should abolish the concept of the minimum wage. And for them, what freedom What freedom is about is that if you are struggling in a high unemployment area and you are prepared to work for $3 an hour and an employer is prepared to pay you $3 an hour, that's freedom. That's freedom. We've gotten the government out of our lives. We've gotten rid of that terrible minimum wage. These same guys, there was a group of folks at the Business Roundtable. The Business Roundtable, ladies and gentlemen, is the organization representing the CEOs of every major corporation in America. And they came to Washington, Wall Street, all these guys came to Washington. They said, we think we should raise the retirement age for Social Security to 70 years of age. Medicare eligibility to 70 years of age. These are guys, all multimillionaires, all having fantastic health care, all having wonderful retirement programs, telling Congress that we should raise the retirement age for Social Security and Medicare, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what Jim asked is, what do these guys want? This is what they want. They want to undo every single piece of legislation, do away with the ability of workers to form unions, either cut back or even undo, do away with Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Some of these guys believe Social Security is unconstitutional. Federal government should not be involved at all in Medicare and Medicaid. Just yesterday, House of Representatives passed for the first time in 30 years, as I understand it, a farm bill that did not include food stamps. You got 1 out of 5 kids in this country who are hungry. Elderly people don't have enough to eat. And they did not include food stamps in their farm bill. So these guys want to bring us back to the 1920s when workers had no Social Security. There was no health care, people, no right to form unions, no security, and bring us back to a time, and we are moving in that direction, where the billionaire class, the top 1%, controls the economic and political life of this country. That is what they want. And what they're trying to do now is engaging in a race to the bottom. The same guy, I think it's Charles Koch, was comparing American workers. We're not doing so bad compared to Sub-Sahara Africa. You're doing really well compared to desperate third world countries. What are you complaining about in America? And that is now the line of some of these Tea Party Republicans, that we are being now compared not to Finland, not to Denmark, not to first world countries, but to people in the third or fourth world. So there is a war, Jim, against working families. Apparently, the Koch brothers were worth, $40 billion. Don't think that that's enough. They need more. General Electric, which doesn't pay on any given year anything in federal income taxes, that's not good enough for them. And on it goes. So that's what it's about. These guys want more power. They want more wealth. And they are prepared to use their wealth and power to gain even more.
Bernie, we have just 2 minutes to the end of the hour.
Let's take one more, see if we can.
Okay, we take a call
here. I won't
here.
rant quite as long.
Okay. James in Leslie, Arkansas, watching Free Speech TV. You're on the air with Senator Sanders. A quick one, please, James.
Oh, yes. My goodness, Senator Sanders, you just bestowed, you just capitalized and increased my question to you. And it concerns with Senator Elizabeth Warren's 21st Century Glass-Steagall Act. I'm seeing an attack on credit unions again by the large banks.
Yes.
That occurred back in the 80s. In your ramblings in through Senate and perhaps visiting with Senator Warren, have you come across this, that they are going back into the credit unions to provide lower rates? Thank you.
Yeah, they are, of course. I mean, here's an example. We have these huge banks which were bailed out by the American people. They are very, very worried that credit unions that are nonprofit institutions pay nothing in federal taxes. Very worried about that. So they want to impose, have the credit unions, which are nonprofits, which share their profits with their members, which often have lower rates than banks. They want them to pay taxes. So yes, these large banks will continue their effort to try to impede the growth of credit unions. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thus, now is a great time to move your money into a credit union.
And a lot of people are. You talk to the credit unions now, and they are doing, by and large, pretty well.
Yeah.
And they are expanding, and they should, because often they provide lower interest rates, and they are not paying their CEOs exorbitant salaries.
Yeah.
And they're paying more attention to the people in their community.
There you go. Senator Bernie Sanders. Bernie, thank you so much for being with us again this week.
Thank you. Take care.
It is always an honor to have you.